Well, hello, good morning, and welcome. My name's Rob.
And I'm Katie.
With Here Today.
Where Tomorrow.
And on today's video, we are going to do a deep dive and review of our recent Alaskan cruise aboard the Norwegian Jewel. So we're going to start where every cruise begins, Embarkation.
We embarked on this journey in Seattle at Pier 66, also called North 66. This was our first time ever embarking in Seattle, and honestly, it was super easy.
And from the moment that we arrived in our Uber, we were greeted by engaging and super excited staff.
Navigating the terminal itself was super easy. Everything was really well with signage and super simple to get there. Once we got through, though, it was just a waiting game.
Yeah, it really became a hurry up and wait at that point. Once we had done all the check-in process, we had our boarding group, and then it was hurry up and wait. This was my third Norwegian, and pretty much every time I've done a Norwegian ship, this seems to be par for the course. We hurry up all the way through the check-in process, and then we get to a giant room where we all sit and wait for quite a long period of time. On the Vlogger Extravaganza on the breakaway, we waited. Now, thankfully, it was a party amongst friends because there were 1,000 of us there specifically for the Vlogger cruise, which was great meeting all those friends. But even when we were on the Bliss out of LA at the beginning of 2024, we waited almost like 2 hours for that one. And that one seemed to be, they had an issue coming in. So they got in late, which meant people got off the ship late, which means we got on the ship late. But it does seem to be a trend that Norwegian takes a little bit longer to get the passengers on board. Thankfully,
Madison makes friends everywhere we go, so we always have fun even while we're waiting.
She ended up coloring a couple pictures for someone that we were sitting across from it. She was just coloring them and handing them out. And I don't care if you want them or not, these are now yours. So it was really, really cute. But once we got through Embarkation, we got on the ship. So let's talk about the ship, the Norwegian Jewel. This ship was built in 2005 and has a gross tonnage of 93,500 tons, which is actually kind of small. This is a smaller ship, one of the smallest in Norwegian's fleet, with only a guest capacity of 2,376 guests.
We do like smaller ships, and so this was no exception. It's very easy to navigate and everything just logically makes sense.
Now, most of the ship happens in the middle and there are a lot of hallways down the sides. So for example, on like the promenade, you have an outer deck that goes all the way around the ship. And then you have kind of these passageways that go down each side of the interior of the ship. That way you're kind of looking inward towards whatever it is, whether it's one of the lounges or the bars or the atrium, which was really nice. All of that kind of happens in the middle of the ship, which I thought was really, really great. Was easy to navigate, and we did really enjoy the layout of the ship. So this ship has a lot of the same amenities that some of the bigger ships do. You have your theater, you have your main atrium, you have your coffee shop, which happened to be a Starbucks on Norwegian ships, which was pretty nice. All of your food, your specialty dining and entertainment, all of those definitely have their place in the Jewel. It's just on a smaller capacity, which, like she said earlier, we do kind of like the smaller ships sometimes for their intimacy. You get to see more people more often. It makes you feel like you're part of a group of people instead of just being one small number amongst a very large mega vessel, if you will. One thing that Katie got to check out was the thermal spa. So what did you think about the thermal spa?
It was really, really cool. So this is the first time that I've actually paid to be part of the thermal spa. This isn't where you actually go in and get any services done. It's where you just have access to the actual amenities themselves. So that's going to include your hot tubs, saunas, even the plunge baths. So I had the opportunity to go lay on the loungers, read a book, just chill out. And it was really nice. And everyone was really respectful. It was really quiet. It was very serene. And I had a lot of fun almost at the end of every day, just decompressing and spending some time in the thermal spa, which was forward on the ship. And it was fantastic.
So because we were in Alaska, there was a lot of people that maybe had interiors or ocean views that wanted to get out and see some of the sights, the glaciers as we were going through Glacier Bay. The Jewel does have an observation deck, and it has ample outdoor decking for you to see in all directions. I will say, because we were in Alaska, there was a lot of the top sun decks that were completely unused. Never saw a soul there, just because it was so cold and windy that you wouldn't enjoy standing there or laying out in the sun, because there wasn't really much sun in Alaska in October. But for those views of being in Alaska, going along the inner passage, etc., of the Glacier Bay, etc., there were ample spaces for you to sit down with a book, find a window, and have a great time if you didn't have the luxury of having a balcony like us.
I thought the crew did a really good job of making sure that they would do a 360 in Glacier Bay, so regardless of what side of the ship you're on, you always get the views. Now that we've talked about the ship, I think it's time that we talk about our piece of the ship, which is our stateroom. So we had a balcony stateroom. We opted to have the Norwegian Jewel pick for us our stateroom, so we did not have the opportunity to pick where we were on the ship, and I think we got pretty lucky.
The stateroom was really great. It was laid out really, really well, even for the age of the ship. I will say the bathroom was a little interesting with its kind of separate toilet, shower, each having a wall. I feel like that space was a little tight for a bigger guy like me in the bathroom. But we did have ample counter space, which is kind of a dual-edged sword because we had a ton of places to put things on. But unfortunately, we only had 2 upright cabinets for clothes with no dressers. So it was kind of, I almost wish we had less counter space and a third upright with tons of drawers in it. Because we were in Alaska, we had a lot of heavy clothes. And we kind of had to live kind of out of a suitcase / with the hanging storage because there wasn't enough places to put clothes. One thing I did really like, which wouldn't be good for everyone, but really worked for us, the pull-out bed for Madison was actually short. It was not a full-length adult-size mattress, which really worked because we were able to walk. It didn't close off the room. It didn't separate the balcony and the rest of the room. I was on a princess ship with my boys, Jason and Patrick, and Jason slept on the pull-out couch, and it did block the end. You could not get to the balcony unless you folded that couch or climbed over him, which he was really into, and we were not really about that. So we ended up having to fold him and the couch up to get out of the way so that we could go out on our balcony.
And there's a reason I don't go on those boys' cruises. The short couch worked really well because obviously Madison is 4, so it was perfect for us. But if you do have somebody who's taller, they do have the option of an upper Pullman. Now, that is something that we consider sometimes because it could be nice to have the couch to sit and lounge on and have available and not be a bed the entire time. Because realistically, if you look at our stateroom, you have a bed and a bed. So when we did order room service, the only place to eat is on the bed. And so there is some, I think, benefit to using the upper Pullman. We haven't done that quite yet. We need Madison to be a little bit older, but we probably will try that in the future.
We were closer to the aft of the ship on the port side. So Zars, which is the main dining room, the larger of the 2 main dining rooms, was actually not that far away from us. We were on deck 9 and Zars was on 6.5, which I thought was very interesting. You had to go to either floor, 6 or 7, and then either go up half a flight of stairs or go down half a flight of stairs. And then you would walk out into Zars, and then you would have to go down 1 flight of stairs or 1.5 flights of stairs. I don't understand the value of this, especially to anyone that's handicapped. There's no way you would have to go to a different floor and then go through some special area if you're in a wheelchair or if you have mobility issues and you can't climb up and down stairs. Honestly, I know this was, built in 2005, which makes sense then, but It's very ableist. Like, I honestly do not like how... I love the decoration. I love the theming. But the, like, let's walk down these glorious staircase is not handy capable in the slightest. So, just, you know, whatever. One of the nitpicky thing.
Well, and I will say that that's not the case in the other main dining room.
Correct. Now, the other main dining room, Azura, that one is just on a main level and you could get there easier, but it was a much smaller, more intimate, darker feeling. And so a lot of the times that room was more full and there was quite a bit of a wait as opposed to Zar for dinner and stuff like that. Especially
with a larger party like ours.
So we've been talking a lot about restaurants. Let's actually dive into the food and some of the drinks aboard the Norwegian Jewel. We'll start with the drink packages. Now, we don't actually drink, so we didn't get any drink packages. They do have multiple on board, and Norwegian does this thing called Free at Sea, which is a promotion that when you book your cruise, they will give you certain items for free. A drink package, a Wi-Fi package, or maybe a spa package. Specialty dining, all of these things can be free. Now, unfortunately, when you get the Free at Sea drink package, it's not actually free.
So when you're booking, you have the opportunity to opt out of any of these free options. Now, with the drink package specifically for our cruise, which was a 9-day, you pay the tax on those actual drink packages that are considered free. So we opted not to have the drink package and we saved ourselves $500 in taxes, which for us is crazy. We would never spend that much money in drinks, let alone almost anything on board.
So aside from the alcoholic drinks package, they did have a soda package and they did have a Starbucks package, which was pretty neat. The Gribbons did, I believe, have the Starbucks package for some of their kids. They did have the open bar package, which I believe they came with their cruise booking promotion of the Free at Sea. And so they did partake with a couple of the different packages. So they'll probably have more information on that. So if you don't know, your water, teas, some juices, and your coffee are all free. They're all included with your cruise fare at no additional cost. But if you would like to partake with an alcoholic beverage, or if you'd like to check out the Starbucks on board, or have a Coke with dinner, you are more than welcome to, and you would just pay as you go, which is what we did. And I think at the end of our 9-day cruise, we probably bought 5 beverages at Starbucks and maybe had a handful of Cokes or soft drinks here and there. So it really wasn't smart for us to do the drink package, but for those that may indulge, it may be wise. So just do some of your own research on that and find out what the cost analysis is on that. It might be good for you, or like us, it might save you a couple $100.
The other pro tip that we have is to order water ahead of time. So if you want to have bottles of water delivered to your room the day that you get there, you can have that actually set up before you even step on board. It's really nice because even though water's included, you would have to go to either the buffet or somewhere where that water is available. And so it is really nice just to have bottles of water available in your stateroom.
I highly suggest getting water, and I highly suggest bringing some electrolyte packages to put in that water. Really does go a long way. So now let's talk about some of the other food options on board. Of course, we talked about Zar and Azura, which are both your main dining, which breakfast, lunch, dinner, sometimes they're open for lunch, sometimes they're not. It seemed like Sea Days, they were open for lunch with a special menu, but for pretty much every single night and every single morning, both are open for breakfast and dinner, which they have an array of food. It is the same kitchen in both locations. It's just about ambiance, I think, between the two. Like I said, Zar is very bright and golden, and Azure was very blue and moody, so, and more intimate, if you will. Above that, they do also have specialty dining. They have a couple of specialty dining on board. The ones that we did partake of is La Cucina, which is their Italian. We also did Moderno, which is their Brazilian steakhouse. And then we did Le Bistro, which is their French restaurant. And I will say, Italian was great. It was very, very, very good.
We go to Italian specialty restaurants almost every cruise. We love Italian specialty restaurants, and this was no exception.
And then the Brazilian steakhouse was amazing.
Now that's something that's unique. It's not always available on cruise ships, so that was really different and a great experience for me. The actual buffet that's available for the salad bar, incredible. There's so much goodness that's available outside of just meats. So if you're like me and don't just eat like a carnivore, there is other options available for you. And then we have Le Bistro, which honestly was the best onboard restaurant that we've had at sea.
Yes, and she is not exaggerating. I have been on 22 cruises, and by far the dish that I had, the Lobster Thermador at Le Bistro, was the most delicious dish I have ever eaten on any cruise ever.
We absolutely recommend the escargot to start.
Yes.
And pro tip, if you take your bread and dip it into the escargot butter, whew, it is
the snail
incredible.
Juice, gotta dip it into snail juice. Super good. Of course, you have the buffet, which was actually really, really good. So Norwegians Buffet is pretty much one area, and that's all that's there. There are other ships that we've been on where the stations are spaced out, or other cruise lines like MSC where the buffet repeats so that you never have too many people in one area. This was all in one space, but honestly, the way it was laid out, there was enough movement that I never felt like I was on top of anybody. The food was always really good, fresh, and really well stocked. So the buffet was awesome. But we have to give a shining star and a special tip of the hat to my lady of Oceans. They should have a local or Oceans type 24/7 pub style eatery on every single ship on the seas. Honestly, it is one of my favorite things about Norwegian. The food is always really good. The atmosphere is fun. It's usually located right there at the atrium in the center of everything going on. So you always have something to do. Look out the windows and see whales. You're sitting in the middle and you're listening to a musician perform down below in the atrium. It's just, there's always something to do. The food is super good, and you know, a place where everyone knows your name. So I feel like I'm walking into Cheers every time I go to the local or Oceans. I really, really do think that that's one of the best dining options at sea, period.
And that's across the Norwegian fleet. So
Yeah.
you'll either find the local or Oceans, depending on which ship that you're on, but you're not going to go wrong regardless. And there was even a time that we saw a movie while we were there.
Yeah, absolutely. So absolutely a great time. The food options on board are super, super good. Norwegian has probably one of the top menus across the board. I will say Carnival probably has more adventurous things on the menu. But as far as continued quality, Norwegian's there.
I agree.
Norwegian's right at the top. I think probably Norwegian is probably my favorite food cruise line currently. So now we are going to talk about the staff and the entertainment on board the Norwegian Jewel. So pretty much everywhere you look, we were welcomed with a smile and a "Hey, how are you?" by any of the staff on board. Again, this being a smaller ship, they have less staff. I believe it's like 11 to 1,300 staff on board. So you really do get to know people on that 9 days, and you get to know the staff and they get to know you. We had quite a few in the dining room that we ended up asking to sit in their section because we really enjoyed engaging with them. And honestly, that kind of happened throughout the cruise. So I would honestly say this is probably one of the friendliest cruises that we had been on. And maybe it was the vibe. Maybe it's the fact that the Alaskan sailing isn't the party pumping, let's go hard style of cruising that a lot of people are used to in the Caribbean. So it's kind of a little bit of a break. Everything's a little bit more relaxed. Everyone takes a little bit more time. And that, I think, is really, really good. Our stateroom steward was awesome. He saved our lives when we got locked out on our balcony. If you haven't seen that, I'll put a card up here. You can see us getting locked out on our balcony in Juneau.
I do want to shout out the staff because they were extra engaged with the kids on board, which I think is really cool. The kids program was fantastic. Madison had so much fun playing and making art and just having a blast with all of the other kids that were on the ship. I will say also Tahani, which was our cruise director, took a special interest in Madison and even bought her a macaroon as a little treat. And they had such a good time. And every time Madison would see Tahani, as we were either in a theater for a show or just around the ship or on deck, Madison was always thrilled to see Tahani. And honestly, sometimes she still talks about her.
Yeah.
In addition to the wonderful staff, we also had great entertainment. So there was a couple of shows that we saw, and I'm going to say it, Norwegian has some of the best shows at sea. Their productions are incredible. We saw Le Cirque, which was just, I never knew what was going to happen next. And it was so
nowhere to look. There were so many people
incredible.
flying through the air.
Yeah, and my only gripe with Norwegian is I wish that we could film while we were in the theater, because there is such incredible talent and just wonderful shows that we absolutely love, and we wish that we could share that with you.
Yeah, I wish I could showcase the amazing talent of these artists. There's so much that goes into these shows, and they're hiding. No one knows about them because you can't film them. And I understand some of the like copyright music, etc., stuff like that, but man, I wish there was a way that we could showcase some of these a little bit more. The musicians on board, and not only through the shows, but just the live music being played throughout the entire cruise. Great. Many talented people. Shout out to Melvin for doing a Cat Stevens and John Denver. Like, I don't know why that was what you chose, but I loved it. It was so great. John Denver is kind of a staple in this household, and something that I grew up with. That was one of my dad's idols. So it was cool to see a John Denver tribute in the middle of the Inner Passage in Alaska. So really great. The staff, 10 out of 10. Entertainment was 10 out of 10. Norwegian always knocks it out of the park. No matter what cruise ship we're on with Norwegian, their shows are always top tier.
Next, we're going to jump into the ports of call. Now, it started off a little bit rocky for us because our first port of call, Sitka, was actually canceled. So if you haven't seen the vlog, definitely go check it out. But there was an emergency on board and we rerouted to Ketchikan. So the first day that we were at Ketchikan, we did have the opportunity to stop at Creek Street, and we had an amazing time going shopping. The weather, of course, was Alaska weather. No surprise there, but we had a great time nonetheless.
So the next port was Icy Strait Point. Now, this did seem a little bit like it was purpose-built for cruise ships, and unfortunately, because we were so late in the season, a lot of the things in and around that touristy area was actually closed. A lot of the shops, a lot of the food vendors, none of them were there because it was so late in the season. We did take the Skyliner gondola, that was, I believe, about $50 an adult, to go up to the top of Sky Peak, which was really cool. Somebody, and I won't point any fingers, doesn't like heights, so got a little scared there for a second, but the views from the top were incredible, and honestly, it was totally worth it. Now, we didn't go into the town of Hoona. We were kind of running some late on time because we had gotten off a little bit late, but honestly, Icy Strait Point was really nice. I would definitely go back again, but it definitely felt a little touristy. And then because it was so late in the season, none of the touristy options were actually there. So it kind of was a catch-22.
And you know you're going to make fun of me for being scared of heights, but we were literally above the clouds.
Yeah, absolutely. Next was Glacier Bay, which the Glacier Bay National Park had people from the National Park Ranger Service come on board and give talks. They did like a bunch of information sessions, etc., all while we were going through the Glacier Bay National Forest. The problem that I had was we were out on our balcony looking at all these glaciers. There are no speakers or way to hear what they were talking about on our balcony. And like, if you're on the balcony and you have your balcony door open, so you're trying to hear what he's saying, even then it's super quiet. And so it's like, I would almost have to go to the door out into the hallway to hear him talking. And he was giving some of the most beautiful talks about where we were at and how glaciers are formed. And I mean, we're talking history and science and all this stuff. And I can't hear any of it because I'm on the balcony. And it's like, ah, man, I wish there was a way to like have a speaker on the balcony or some way for me to engage with what he was talking about. That's not being in an observation deck. I mean, the reason that we're on a balcony, got a balcony, is for this, you know? And so I felt like that was a little bit of a miss opportunity for Glacier Bay. But like Katie said earlier in the video, we did go to 2 glaciers. And when we got to both glaciers, we did a 360 at the first and a 180 degree turn on the second. So we were able to get, if you weren't on the side of the glacier, they spun around so that you could see it, or at least give you some views of it, which was pretty cool.
Next up, we had Skagway, which we did our own thing in Skagway, and it was so much fun. Honestly, might be my favorite port. So we ended up looking up a hike that you can do from the actual port, and you can just walk to this just incredible scenery. We saw a plane land on this little airstrip. I mean, we couldn't have been luckier with the foliage and just the incredible, incredible scenery. We did all of that for free. And so we definitely recommend doing that. A lot of people do the train in Skagway, which I'm sure is beautiful as well and scenic, but it was kind of nice to do our own thing at our own pace.
Yeah, and we will say this trip wasn't actually supposed to happen. So we booked this very last minute, and it was an unexpected expense. And so we tried to save as much money as we could as to enjoy our cruise, but also be respectful of the fact that this was an unplanned expense to go on this cruise. So doing a lot of excursions wasn't really on our to-do list. And so I just searched for free things to do. I found some random Yucatania Point lookout area and thought, how do we get there? And I looked it up, and apparently it's a hike you can do. And I said, well, then let's do that. And it was great. We ended up, after the hike, we went into town, into Skagway, and did some shopping. We stopped at a coffee shop and had some delicious coffee. And then after having some coffee and shopping, we got back on board. Because it was the end of the season, a lot of the stores were closed. So, you know, I think we kind of really... Same thing with Icy Strait is kind of a catch-22 because the foliage that we got to hike through was absolutely beautiful because we were going in October, but a lot of the stores were closed because it was the end of the season. So, you know, I think maybe August, September would be a little bit better to go, but October is when we had booked it, and that's when we went. So that's what we did. Next was Juneau, which we were supposed to take a gondola up to their observation point, but due to wind and rain, we were unable to do that. Now, it rained pretty much all day in Juneau. We got off to go to our excursion. The excursion got canceled, so we went back on the ship, hung out for a little bit on the ship, then we went back out into Juneau just to do some shopping, and again, ran into a bunch of places that were closed for the season, but we did pick up some delicious fudge, which was really nice, and we did some other shopping as well. Just kind of walked around, saw the Red Dog Saloon, you know, some of the famous places that Juneau is known for, and then got back on the ship, and that's when we got locked out on our balcony. So Juneau was kind of a weird day. It was kind of a weird day. We had a lot going on at the moment. And,
we would definitely wish for some better weather when we go back, which we don't know when that's going to be, but we will be back.
We'll definitely go back.
Next up, we stopped at Ketchikan again. Now, this was our scheduled port day in Ketchikan, so we actually were at a different port stop than we were the first time. Now, this one was interesting because you actually needed to go through their little visitor center and then catch a bus to go into the city. We had the opportunity to go on one of the free buses that just goes around town so we could see everything, but it wasn't necessarily a tour or anything like that. You could just go and sit and see. Because we had already gone to Creek Street the first time we were in Ketchikan, that's all we really needed. And again, it was raining. And again, a lot of things were closed. So we just took it as a little scenic tour, if you will, and had a great time.
Yep. Then the next day, we ended up in BC, which British Columbia, Victoria is a mandatory stop for Canada since you're kind of driving by. They say if you're going to drive by, you better come here. And so we were there. We were supposed to get in at like 8, and we were going to leave at 11, but we didn't get in till like 9:30, and they didn't start letting people off till like around then. And so it was like, you're going to get off for maybe an hour to get back on. There was nothing to do right there at the port. You'd have to go somewhere, and there was no time to do that. It's like all the people who had excursions all got canceled because the excursion started at 7 when we were supposed to come in, and we didn't come in till 9. So it ended up being too much of a mess, and we didn't care enough to get off. So we sat in the atrium with our friends and had a wonderful time drinking Starbucks and talking and hanging out with our friends.
That's it for excursions.
That was it for excursion.
And that's going to wrap up this cruise. So the very last thing we did was disembark. We took it nice and slow. We did not have a travel day as we were leaving the ship, so we could leisurely go to breakfast, hang out with our friends, make our way off the ship, and it was super simple. I don't think we stopped once. No,
it was really, really easy getting off. I do suggest, if you have the ability to not rush off of a ship, do that. Check your bags the night before, put them outside. You get up at 7, 8 o'clock, lazily make your way down to breakfast, have a nice breakfast, and by the time breakfast is done, you're going to lazily walk off the ship. Your bags will be there, you won't have any line, and you're ready to go. I would probably say the next time we go, I would prefer us go midsummer, not so much fall, and just try to see what the difference is. I think we kind of missed the migration of whales. We did see whales on the last day, but that's because we were back in the lower 48 by that time. So I think if we were earlier in the season, we would see a lot more whales, which is definitely amazing. Now, don't get me wrong, with this amazing super zoom camera, I did get some awesome shots of whales, which check out the vlog for that one. I have a whole little 3-minute clip of just whales doing whale things. I got humpback whales, orcas. I mean, what do you need? You want a humpback whale? I got humpbacks. You want an orca? You want some killer whales?
It was a whale of a time.
Yeah, it was great. So we had an absolute blast of a time. I would definitely do Alaska again, 100%. That was totally worth it. Cold weather cruising was amazing, and Alaska was breathtakingly beautiful, and I so want to do that again. That will definitely be on our list to do in the future. We absolutely loved Alaska and can't wait to go back, but we are glad that we had this first experience with our friends on the Norwegian Jewel. We love Norwegian, and we'll certainly be sailing them again. Well, my name's Rob. And I'm Katie. From Here Today. Where tomorrow. And we will see you there. If you like this video and want to see more, please head on over to the channel and subscribe. And if you want to get notified, ring that little bell. We upload new videos every week.